There comes a moment in life when silence stops protecting you and starts betraying you. A moment when you realize that the love you've been offering freely has been accepted conveniently, but not honored. This is the moment most people fear, because it demands courage instead of comfort. It demands that you stop explaining your pain and start defining your limits. And when you do, something unsettling happens. The warmth you once felt begins to cool. The affection you trusted begins to shift. Not because you became difficult, but because you became clear. Setting boundaries is not an act of rebellion. It is an act of self-recognition. It is the quiet decision to no longer trade your peace for approval. And this is where illusions collapse. Because real love does not demand your self-erasure to survive. Real love does not feel threatened by your strength. When boundaries are placed, genuine care steps forward with respect, while false affection reveals itself through resistance, discomfort, and withdrawal. This is not a tragedy. This is truth arriving unannounced. What you are about to hear is not about losing people. It is about losing confusion. It is about understanding why some connections fade the moment you stop overgiving, over-explaining, and over-sacrificing. Boundaries do not push the right people away. They expose the wrong intentions. And once you see that clearly, you will never mistake attention for love again. Boundaries are not walls, they are truth. Most people misunderstand boundaries because they confuse them with rejection. They imagine boundaries as cold barriers built to keep others out. In reality, boundaries are not walls meant to isolate you from love. They are mirrors that reflect the truth of every relationship in your life. When you live without boundaries, you offer unlimited access to your time, your energy, your emotions, and even your silence. This openness can look like kindness, but without limits, kindness slowly turns into self-neglect. Boundaries are the moment you decide that your inner world deserves protection, not constant negotiation. When you begin setting boundaries, something subtle yet powerful shifts. You stop explaining yourself excessively. You stop apologizing for needing rest, space, or respect. You stop shrinking to maintain harmony. And in that shift, relationships are forced to reveal what they are truly built on. Those who care about you may feel surprised at first, but they adjust. They listen. They learn. They respect the new language you are speaking, the language of self-worth. Boundaries do not confuse genuine love. They clarify it. Fake love, however, reacts very differently. It interprets your boundaries as rejection, not because you rejected anyone, but because it relied on your lack of limits to survive. When someone benefits from your constant availability, your silence, your forgiveness without accountability, your boundaries feel like a loss of control. And control, not connection, was the foundation of that bond. This is why resistance appears. This is why guilt is introduced. This is why you may suddenly be labeled as distant, changed, or difficult. These labels are not descriptions of your behavior. They are emotional defenses against truth. Boundaries reveal intentions because they remove confusion. Before boundaries, everything feels blurred. You wonder why you feel drained after certain interactions. You question why love feels heavy instead of supportive. You blame yourself for feeling tired, sensitive, or overwhelmed. Boundaries end that internal confusion. They bring precision into your relationships. When you say, "This is what I can accept, and this is what I cannot," you are not attacking anyone. You are simply naming reality, and reality makes false dynamics uncomfortable. There is also a deeper reason boundaries expose fake love. They demand equality. Real love understands that two whole individuals are meeting, not one person sacrificing themselves to keep the other comfortable. Fake love depends on imbalance. It needs one person to overgive and the other to over-receive. Boundaries disrupt this imbalance. They say, "I matter too." And anyone who benefited from you believing otherwise will struggle with that statement, even if they never say it out loud. Many people fear setting boundaries because they are afraid of loss. They worry that if they stop overgiving, people will leave. But what is often overlooked is this truth. Boundaries do not cause loss. They reveal it. If someone disappears when you stop exhausting yourself, they were not connected to your presence. They were attached to your sacrifice. Boundaries simply make that visible. And visibility, though painful at first, is freeing in the long run. Boundaries are also deeply connected to self-trust. Every time you ignore your discomfort to keep someone else satisfied, you teach yourself that your feelings are negotiable. Over time, this creates inner conflict and quiet resentment. When you begin honoring your limits, you rebuild trust with yourself. You start believing your own emotions again, and this inner alignment changes how others experience you. You become calmer, clearer, and more grounded. Not everyone will like this version of you, especially those who benefited from your confusion. But this version is real. It is important to understand that boundaries do not need to be loud or aggressive to be effective. They can be calm, firm, and consistent. You do not need long explanations or emotional speeches. Fake love thrives on over-explaining because it looks for loopholes. Boundaries spoken simply leave little room for manipulation. And when there is no room to negotiate your worth, false dynamics lose their power. In the end, boundaries are acts of honesty. They are you telling the truth about what you need to feel safe, respected, and valued. They are not punishments. They are not threats. They are invitations for people to meet you at a healthier level or to step away if they cannot. And that choice is not something you need to control. Your responsibility is not to keep everyone comfortable. Your responsibility is to remain aligned with yourself. When you understand this, fear begins to loosen its grip. You realize that boundaries are not the end of love. They are the beginning of discernment. They separate emotional noise from emotional truth. And in that separation, you gain something far more valuable than approval. You gain peace. Fake love thrives on your lack of limits. Fake love does not begin loudly. It enters quietly, often disguised as warmth, attention, and concern. It feels good at first because it asks for nothing openly. Instead, it slowly assumes access to your time, your emotions, your availability, and eventually your silence. When there are no limits in place, this kind of love grows comfortable, not committed. It learns that you will adjust, accommodate, and explain yourself endlessly to preserve connection. Over time, what you call love becomes a routine of overgiving, and what they call love becomes expectation. A lack of boundaries creates an illusion of closeness. You are always present, always understanding, always flexible. This can look like loyalty, but without limits, loyalty turns into emotional labor. Fake love feeds on this labor. It enjoys the benefits of connection without the responsibility of care. There is no need for accountability when your patience absorbs everything. There is no incentive to grow when your forgiveness resets every imbalance. In this environment, false affection flourishes because nothing challenges it. The moment limits appear, the dynamic changes. Suddenly, your availability is no longer endless. Your energy is no longer free. Your emotional access is no longer guaranteed. And this is where fake love reveals itself, not through cruelty, but through discomfort. You may notice subtle shifts. Conversations feel tense, support becomes conditional, warmth turns into distance. This is not coincidence. It is the system reacting to restriction. When something was never built on mutual respect, it cannot survive mutual boundaries. Fake love often frames your boundaries as harm. You may be told directly or indirectly that you are being unfair, distant, or ungrateful. But notice the pattern. Your needs are questioned, while their expectations remain untouched. This is how imbalance protects itself. Fake love does not ask, "How can I meet you halfway?" It asks, "Why are you changing the rules?" And the truth is, the rules were never mutual to begin with. One of the most difficult realizations is understanding that fake love can exist without obvious negativity. It does not always come with anger or harsh words. Sometimes it comes with disappointment, silence, or emotional withdrawal. These reactions are designed to pull you back into compliance without confrontation. When you feel guilty for having limits, fake love has done its job. It has shifted the focus away from respect and back onto access. A lack of boundaries also teaches others how to treat you. When you consistently ignore your own discomfort, you send a message that your needs are optional. Fake love listens carefully to this message. It learns exactly how far it can go, how much it can take, and how little it needs to give in return. This is not because you invited harm. but because you were never taught that self-protection is not selfish. Boundaries correct this lesson. They rewrite the terms of engagement. When boundaries are finally introduced, fake love often accuses you of becoming someone else. But what they are really witnessing is your return to yourself. You are no longer managing their comfort at the expense of your well-being. You are no longer negotiating your worth for temporary peace. And because fake love was attached to your overextension, it experiences your balance as loss. Not loss of you, but loss of benefit. This stage can be emotionally confusing because part of you may still hope for understanding. You may explain your boundaries gently, carefully, repeatedly. But fake love does not struggle with understanding. It struggles with limitation. No amount of explanation can transform entitlement into respect. Boundaries are not meant to convince, they are meant to clarify. And once clarity arrives, excuses lose their power. The most important shift happens internally. As you maintain your limits, you begin to notice how much energy returns to you. Your mind becomes quieter, your emotions become steadier. The constant effort of managing another person's expectations fades. This peace is not accidental, it is the result of alignment. Fake love cannot coexist with alignment because it depends on your self-neglect. In the end, fake love thrives only where limits are absent. It survives in confusion, guilt, and over-explanation. Boundaries remove these conditions. They do not create conflict, they reveal it. And while this revelation may feel painful at first, it is also deeply liberating, because once you see the difference between connection and consumption, you stop calling exhaustion love. Discomfort is the price of self-respect. Discomfort is often misunderstood as a warning sign, something to escape or suppress as quickly as possible. Many people grow up believing that if a choice feels uncomfortable, it must be wrong. But when it comes to self-respect, discomfort is not a signal of danger, it is a signal of transition. It marks the moment you stop abandoning yourself to maintain peace. When you begin setting boundaries, discomfort appears not because you are doing something harmful, but because you are doing something unfamiliar. For those who have spent years prioritizing harmony over honesty, boundaries feel like betrayal, especially betrayal of the role others have come to expect from you. You were the understanding one, the patient one, the one who made things easier for everyone else. When you step out of that role, discomfort follows. Not because you are becoming unkind, but because you are becoming real. Self-respect requires you to tolerate the temporary unease of disappointing others rather than the permanent pain of disappointing yourself. Discomfort intensifies when people react to your boundaries. You may notice subtle changes in tone, warmth, or engagement. Some may grow quiet. Others may express confusion or disappointment. These reactions can trigger old patterns of guilt and self-doubt. You may wonder if you are being too rigid, too sensitive, or too much. But discomfort does not mean you are wrong. It means the dynamic is being renegotiated, and not everyone is willing to participate in a fair exchange. There is a quiet courage in holding your ground while your nervous system urges you to retreat. This is where self-respect is built, not in dramatic moments, but in calm consistency. Each time you honor your limits despite discomfort, you reinforce a new internal message: my needs matter. Over time, this message becomes stable. The discomfort lessens, not because others change, but because your relationship with yourself strengthens. Discomfort also exposes emotional conditioning. Many people are taught that love requires sacrifice, silence, and endurance. They learn to associate discomfort with goodness and peace with selfishness. Boundaries challenge this conditioning. They ask you to sit with the uneasy feeling of asserting yourself without immediately fixing how others feel about it. This is not emotional coldness, it is emotional maturity. You are allowing others to manage their reactions while you manage your integrity. One of the hardest parts of this process is realizing that some people prefer your discomfort over their own. They are comfortable when you absorb the emotional weight, when you adjust, when you compromise endlessly. When you stop doing that, they experience discomfort instead, and they may not like it. This shift can feel like rejection, but it is actually redistribution. You are no longer carrying what was never yours alone. Self-respect requires patience. In the early stages, boundaries may feel heavy. You may second-guess yourself, replay conversations, or worry about consequences. This is natural. You are undoing years of self-abandonment. But as you continue, something changes. You begin to feel steadier. The inner conflict quiets. The need for external validation fades. You realize that peace does not come from being liked by everyone. It comes from being aligned with yourself. Discomfort is also a teacher. It shows you where you have been overextending, where you have been silent too long, where your values were compromised. Instead of rushing to eliminate discomfort, you learn to listen to it. You learn which discomfort leads to growth and which leads to harm. Boundaries help you make this distinction. They guide you away from chronic emotional strain and toward sustainable connection. As self-respect strengthens, discomfort transforms. What once felt unbearable becomes manageable. What once felt like fear becomes confidence. You no longer feel the urge to explain yourself endlessly. You no longer feel responsible for everyone's emotional comfort. You understand that respect cannot be negotiated through self-erasure. It must be embodied. In the end, discomfort is not the enemy of love. It is the gatekeeper of authenticity. It stands between who you were trained to be and who you are becoming. When you choose self-respect, you choose short-term discomfort over long-term resentment. And in that choice, you reclaim your voice, your balance, and your sense of worth. Reactions reveal intentions. Words are easy to manage. They can be shaped, softened, and adjusted to fit any situation. Reactions, however, are instinctive. They appear before strategy, before control, before careful thought. This is why reactions tell the truth that words often hide. When you begin setting boundaries, you are no longer listening only to what people say about care and respect. You are watching how they respond when your limits interrupt their comfort. And in that moment, intentions quietly surface. When intentions are genuine, boundaries may bring brief surprise, but they do not bring hostility. A person who values you may need time to adjust, but they remain present. They ask questions. They try to understand. Their behavior aligns with their words. Respect does not always look perfect, but it looks consistent. Real care is flexible because it is not dependent on control. It can survive change without turning defensive. False intentions react differently. They may not appear aggressive, but they often appear wounded, offended, or withdrawn. The tone shifts, the energy cools, support becomes selective. These reactions are subtle, which is why they are often overlooked or excused. You may tell yourself that they are just stressed, confused, or hurt, but patterns matter more than excuses. When your boundaries consistently lead to guilt, pressure, or emotional distance, you are not witnessing misunderstanding, you are witnessing resistance. Reactions reveal whether someone values connection or access. When access is restricted, those who cared for the connection will find a way to stay connected. Those who cared mainly for access will feel threatened. This threat is rarely expressed openly. Instead, it appears as disappointment, silence, or quiet punishment. The goal is not to communicate, but to correct your behavior by making your boundaries feel costly. One of the most challenging realizations is understanding that intentions are not proven by history alone. Someone may have been present during your difficult moments, supportive in certain ways, or familiar for many years. But history does not override current behavior. Reactions in the present moment tell you more than past effort. If your growth consistently triggers withdrawal or guilt, the intention was never mutual growth. It was stability without change. Boundaries also remove emotional fog. Before boundaries, you may have sensed something was off, but could not name it. You felt tension, exhaustion, or unease, yet you questioned yourself. Reactions clarify these feelings. When you see how someone responds to your self-respect, your internal confusion begins to settle. You stop wondering whether you are asking for too much. You start recognizing when you are asking the wrong person. It is important to note that not all negative reactions indicate harmful intentions. Discomfort and adjustment are natural parts of change. The difference lies in responsibility. Genuine care takes responsibility for its reactions. It reflects, adapts, and grows. False care externalizes responsibility. It blames your boundaries for its discomfort rather than examining its expectations. This distinction becomes clearer over time, not in a single conversation, but in repeated moments. Watching reactions requires emotional steadiness. There may be an urge to explain, justify, or soften your boundaries when reactions turn uncomfortable. But reactions are data. They do not need to be managed. They need to be observed. When you stop chasing understanding and start observing behavior, you move from emotional involvement to emotional clarity. As you continue honoring your limits, reactions lose their power to confuse you. You begin to trust patterns over promises. You learn that respect is not proven in agreement, but in response to disagreement. Anyone can be kind when things go their way. Character shows itself when they do not. Not end love, they filter it. One of the greatest fears people carry is the belief that setting boundaries will leave them alone. This fear keeps many trapped in relationships that slowly drain their energy, silence their needs, and blur their sense of self. But boundaries do not end love. They refine it. They act as a filter, allowing what is genuine to remain while what is misaligned quietly falls away. What feels like loss at first is often clarity arriving after a long period of confusion. When you live without boundaries, everyone appears close. Conversations are frequent, access is constant, and attention feels reassuring. Yet closeness without discernment is not intimacy, it is exposure. Boundaries introduce selectivity. They ask a simple question of every relationship. Can this connection respect my limits without trying to erase them? Those that can remain. Those that cannot reveal their true nature through distance, resistance, or disengagement. Filtering is not rejection. It is alignment. Boundaries align your external relationships with your internal values. When this alignment begins, the circle around you often becomes smaller, but stronger. Interactions feel lighter. Communication becomes clearer. You no longer feel the need to perform, prove, or protect your worth. This shift can feel unfamiliar because chaos once felt like connection. Boundaries replace chaos with stability. Many people mistake the quiet that follows boundaries as emptiness. In reality, it is space. Space to think clearly. Space to rest without guilt. Space to notice how your body feels when you are no longer constantly adjusting to others. This space is where self-trust grows, and self-trust changes how love is experienced. You no longer chase it, you recognize it. Boundaries also change the quality of love you accept. You stop being impressed by intensity alone. You look for consistency, respect, and emotional safety. Love no longer needs to be loud to feel real. It feels steady. It feels supportive. It does not require you to abandon yourself to maintain connection. This is not a downgrade. It is an upgrade in emotional maturity. Filtering love requires patience. There may be moments of doubt when familiar faces fade and new connections have not yet formed. This in-between phase can feel lonely, but it is also temporary. It is the space between who you were accommodating and who you are becoming. Trusting this phase is part of honoring your boundaries. You are not losing love. You are learning how it should feel.